The following production is intended for entertainment purposes only. We are not legal professionals. We do not speak for any government agency, and the opinions expressed here are our own. Relax.
What's
What's up,
going on,
man?
man?
Nothing. Early morning, earlier than usual, but I've kind of been getting up super early anyway. So it was, instead of just waking up early and staring at my ceiling, this time I woke up early and had something to do. So
Yeah.
it was
What
better.
what is early to you?
Well, this morning it was 5, but like the day yesterday it was 3. That doesn't happen super often, but it happens.
Holy cow, was that intentional or that just happened?
Nah, homie, that just happens. Unless I have assistants going to sleep. I'm and maybe so it depends on my health. It depends on my routine. But like right now when I'm not doing a lot of mindfulness or anything at bedtime, if I don't have help going to sleep, it's about 11, and yeah, 11 around there. And I'm up at 5. May sometimes 3. 3 doesn't happen like all the time, but it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you'll actually, so your options are either to lay there and look at the ceiling or get up.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's it.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had that problem. Like I could fall asleep right now on the floor.
Yeah. Well, see, so just like this morning, so today I got up. Our school systems here have, once a month they have this program is called All Pro Dads, where the dads can go with their kids and have breakfast at school, and all the dads will be there. Well, it's usually about a dozen or so of us that show up,
All
but
the
that's
dads
the
that don't
idea.
suck.
Yeah, but that's the idea, is that all the dads show up. Of course, I've meant to do this every single month, and I haven't made any of them with Caleb. I made one at the elementary school, the very first one, and have missed all of them. And today was the last one. So I was like, I better get one in with Caleb. So I went with Caleb this morning. Uh that hit that started at 6:15. So I woke up at 5, made sure he was up, and we were, yeah. So
Yeah.
so we went to that, and it's cool. Every dad got to stand up and embarrass their kid and tell the group why they loved them and why their kid's so special. There was a little, each week or each session, there's like a little subject that they talk about. And this one was about empathy and sympathy and compassion, and just trying to instill that onto the kids and to the adults, I guess. But when I got home, the younger kids were leaving for school, and I was immediately able to take a nap after the kids left. So they left like at 8:05. At 8:30, I was like, I'm setting my alarm for 9:30, and I'm taking a nap. And I had zero problem doing that. I have no
Yeah.
problem napping,
Yeah.
but it's just the nighttime sleeping. We don't always get along. Sometimes we're frenemies. Me and sleep, me and nighttime
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah. How old is Caleb again?
17.
Oh wow. Dang, I didn't realize he was that old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, dude. He's a young man.
So is he a senior then or a junior?
He's a junior.
Okay.
No,
At
no desire to get a license.
yeah.
Zero.
Well, how old do you have to be to get a license out there?
16.
Okay. So is he at the age where like, I'm sure that there have been stages where like he was your buddy and then probably, your whatever. Like right now, are you guys pals or what's
Uh,
the relationship?
oh man. So we had a weird hiccup like a month or so ago, or maybe like 3 weeks ago, where I thought he was going to challenge me physically. We were upset,
Yeah.
and I thought he was going to challenge me physically, and I think he got to the point where he was thinking about it.
I was gonna say he's just measuring you up.
And so I've seen that look before.
Yeah.
Someone that's ready to hit me,
Yeah.
and right, I've seen that a few times. So I saw like His shoulders clenched, his fists were clenched, and he clenched his jaws. I was like, hey, 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 are you about to hit me? And he was like, no. And he started getting, a little upset. We were arguing. I said, I promise this is not the way for us to settle this. I said, tell me how you're upset. And I said, and I'll take it. I'm sorry. Let's talk about this. I said, this isn't going to end well for either one of us. Let's just not do it. And so
Mhm.
he he went to his room and cooled down, and later on we talked about it. It was over something silly, like all teenage parent
Yeah.
stuff is.
I mean, honestly, even adult stuff, most of it's pretty silly when it comes down to it.
I've heard this a lot from Buddhist teachers, but I don't know if it's exactly a Buddhist thing. Is that, well, maybe it is a Buddhist thing because I heard it from the Dalai Lama, but maybe I don't know if it's, anyway, is that all confrontation is not about the person that you're mad at, or not about the person that you're lashing out at. It's all about how you perceive the world and how you perceive yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So if anyone honks at you, or if you're having it out with your dad and he doesn't know anything because he's an idiot, uh
Yeah.
it's not about that. It's about how you're perceiving it.
Yeah.
Sounds real good. I don't know how good I put it into practice.
Well, I think that we had that conversation or something similar to that, where like if somebody, whatever silly example you want to give, if somebody accuses you of being a whatever, they accuse you of being purple, you're
Hiding
purple.
evidence or destroying it.
If it's not something that, like, if you're like, what are you talking about? I'm clearly not purple. Like, okay, like you just ignore it. But if it strikes a nerve, and if you think, man, I might, maybe make it more realistic. Somebody says something you did sucks.
Yeah.
And if you think that if that's in the back of your mind, or if it's a fear that you have, then you're gonna take it to heart, and it's gonna offend you. But if that's not a concern, we can just blow it off.
You know who are the masters at discovering if they strike a nerve with you or not?
Who's that?
Specifically, and I say we can definitely talk about this, but specifically,
I'm gonna let you I'm gonna let you take the lead on that, and I may or may
I'll
not have
start
any
this off, and
comment.
I have I mean, I know we're going to have guests in the future. I think we're going to have guests in the future that can definitely confirm this. But I grew up in I'm not saying I have a permission to say anything stupid, but I grew up I grew up in inner city Oklahoma City in the 80s and 90s, and it was very culturally diverse. It had always been. I was in a minority group in my middle school and elementary school until I left for Tennessee. Then it was, of course, flip-flopped. I've always I've always just been around very culturally diverse groups, and I've specifically I think we're going to start bleeping some names out. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
he's my best friend,
yeah.
and he's blacker
What?
than midnight.
Hold up.
With the sheriff's office, I'm saying at the same rank as running buddies.
Okay.
As running buddies. I haven't, anyway. My buddy Ray from the Navy, same thing. Me and him were thick as thieves. Just my whole life. I don't care what people look like. But, and as a teacher, I've seen this, a substitute teacher, they will throw everything at you like, ha ha ha, ha. Your mama's so fat, ha ha ha. You going bald, ha ha ha. You got feminine hips.
You got bourbon hips.
Your hair's fading. I can tell because you'll come over. And I
Yeah.
try really hard. Like, that doesn't bother me. But
I
but
don't have lady hips. What are you
that's
talking about?
that's crazy. I have very masculine hips. Everybody knows that. I don't definitely don't think about that.
Yeah. Actually, as a matter of fact, somebody just told me the other day that I had masculine hips. So get out of here, kid.
Yeah, you don't know.
That's funny. Um,
Kids that,
so
yeah, specifically them, they're masters at finding it.
yeah. But so you've got a I guess the reason I ask, is because it seems like, at least with my kids, that there's kind of stages, like when they're kids, like little kids, you're just you're just friends, right? Or like you're drinking the fake coffee or whatever, like you're just
Yeah.
playing with them. And then as they get older, all of a sudden you start, maybe it's because they start wanting to do more things, and so you have to instill rules, and so now you're kind of in the way. And then like my son is 12 now, and so it seems to me that it's like the height of me not knowing what I'm talking about, or him thinking that I don't know what I'm talking about. And then, my daughter is 16, so she's kind of coming out of that, and maybe to some degree thinks that I know more than she used to, kind of thing. But it's fun. I enjoy it. I didn't realize he was that old though.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. I don't know if he's about to spread his wings, but he's at the age where he could, or he's approaching that age where he could. There's definitely different phases, like mine and his journey. And I think every relationship, like even with different, multiple kids in the same house, every relationship is different. But I had Caleb when I was 22. I was still a kid. I was a baby
Yeah,
when I
yeah,
had him. And Ashley was younger than me, and we were in the Navy. You know, we we had trial and error for literally every phase of his. Like it was all just figuring it out because me and Ashley were both improving. Which I think everybody is, but improving from our childhood. Uh, like we're comparing, bouncing off what we're doing with the the mistakes that we think our parents made. Like, well, I'm definitely not going to do that, but I am going to keep that.
yeah.
And it's this weird balancing act. But we're not, we definitely had a best friend phase. So, like the first 3 years of his life, his mom was on sea duty and she deployed like 2 times in a row right after right after he was born. And so that took up like the first 3 years pretty much. It was just me and him. And this was 22 to 25-year-old me, like
Mm.
didn't know anything. And I just had this little guy with me and we were just figuring out life together. Went through that. I went on a really long deployment. His mom came back and got out of the Navy. And so he was with her. And when I came back from this really long deployment, he was a different person. He was not the
How
same.
how long? Like what's a really long deployment?
This one was 13 months. It was the longest one I'd done. But
Okay.
I did another 13-monther after that, but not, I've never gone past 13. And this was my first 13-month one.
Is that an option that you get? Like, how does that work? Or they just tell you that this is what you're doing?
So they tell you this is what you're doing, but you also have some choice. And in the Navy, it's weird because I, both of those deployments, these long ones were with the Naval Expeditionary Command. So like it was in a combat role or a potentially combat role. It was in a combat role, not my traditional Navy job. My traditional Navy job was building ordnance and loading it on bombs, bullets, missiles, and putting them on aircraft. These deployments, I was not doing that. I was deployed with Army infantry units, and yeah, I just did other stuff. And that's where I spent most of my career. It was in the expeditionary forces of the Navy, and so they typically have longer deployments. A normal Navy deployment is 6 months, and both of these were over a year.
Is that I mean, it's not like you wouldn't call it special forces, would you?
No
But I wouldn't picture the Navy, like obviously Navy, you would think
sailors.
water
Yeah.
sailors and aircraft.
Mhm.
I wouldn't necessarily picture them being in combat per se.
Yeah, that's why. So it's the expeditionary, and historically, there's always been a very small percentage, but it that is a historic naval role. It's called amphibious warfare. So think about Vikings or Marines. Marines have historically, and even are still now, part of the Navy. Like
Hmm.
Marines are traditionally, it's the infantry of the Navy.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That makes
So
sense.
that's amphibious. Think about like D-Day, all those sailors that drove the ducks, those boats up onto the beach. they were getting shot at and shooting back, and they had to have training for that. And there's always been a role for amphibious or expeditionary warfare in the Navy. Now it's a lot smaller role. It's mostly in SOCOM, but the U.S. Navy also has a whole division that used to be part of Naval Special Warfare, but broke off, which is Naval Expeditionary Warfare. And that's like the divers, EOD, explosive ordnance disposal, the Seabees, the guys who build, who I think that's their motto is fight and build. But they build bases in hostile environments for Marines, because when the Seabees were created, Marines didn't have their own builders, and like every Marine is a rifleman. That was their job. So the Navy took their builders and sent them through their own. At first, it was Marine Corps training, infantry training, but then they quickly made their own training program. That's what I wasn't a CB. I was a riverine. I drove little boats up and down the
Yeah.
rivers.
But so if your normal job is this, and let's just say that the average sailor, I would assume, is maybe a 4, maybe a 6 year commitment. But
Mhm.
if this is your normal job, and then if you're going to be doing this for 13 months, I would assume that you've probably got at least 6 months to a year of training before you go, right?
Yeah,
And so then you do your deployment, and then you just come back and do your normal job.
it goes in cycles. Oh, I didn't. That was a choice that most people did. I chose to stay there. So my first deployment with expeditionary warfare was as an individual augmentee. What was happening was during the hot years of Iraq and Afghanistan, GWAT, our global war on terrorism, Marines and Army infantry was filling casualties. They're having casualties, and they're having their training process is at least a year before the average Marine or soldier gets deployed. So they needed active military bodies that they could send through some type of training to get them combat ready, and to send them to these units to augment their casualties. And so that's what I did, but it was a joint command to Afghanistan. Like, we had a naval CO, a Navy, so a naval commanding officer, a Navy executive officer, but our senior enlisted was Army. We had lots of Air Force leadership, and yeah, So it was everything. We didn't have any Marines with us on that one.
Do you guys, or does the military in general, like, is everybody pretty much respected, or would it be the equivalent of, we worked for the county, and you would maybe look at, like, everybody's judged on their own merit, but you would say that's a townie, right?
Oh yeah,
Like there's an expectation of how somebody's going to handle themselves or whatever, just based on what type of agency they work for or the specific agency.
yeah. So obviously this is gross generalizations,
It's my
but
favorite kind.
yeah, and this is my specialty. That's what I I specialize in. But each branch definitely has their own personality, and like it just naturally happens. This like these you'll see on, I don't watch TikTok, but TikTok or the Instagram shorts or all these things, you'll see these videos. Maybe it's just in my algorithm of like each branch's personality, and they always usually depict the Navy guy as homosexual, and they'll depict a Marine who's psychotic, and a soldier doing this, and like a lazy Air Force guy. Obviously not the I didn't experience the homosexual part, but
Whatever. If you
yeah, but
did, you did.
whatever. It's 2024. I'll do the second half gay. I don't care. No, they but those stereotypes, like, again, very generalizing, but like the sailor who's going to come in, and it happens every time a boat goes into a dock. They All the bars get drained of their alcohol. There's always, or maybe this was, and the Navy's not glamorizing this anymore, but there definitely was a time they used to. But like, it's in the Navy song is "Drink to the Foam," but the bars get shut down. There's usually some fights. There's lots of accusations of adultery after the sailors leave. Yeah, that's just a normal
So
like
they just come in, boat pulls up, and then they just wreak havoc for a weekend,
yes.
and then back on the ship. Hopefully, everybody gets back on the ship.
Yeah, when my first port visit was in Crete, and there's no double jeopardy for this, Navy. You've already punished me once. I was an E3, so no nothing. Like fresh out, I had just turned 19 a couple months before this. I was on a USS George Washington. I was building bombs in G3 bombs. I say build, they're like Legos. You have a big bomb body, you put a fuse on it, you put the guidance section on it, put the tail fin on it, slap it together and send it up to the flight deck for them to load onto an F-18. That's what I spent most of my time doing. Either that or playing spades, with the brothers down in the down in the magazine. And we pulled in. First port was Crete, Greece. Beautiful. We went up to this mountain that Zeus was supposed to be born on. We saw this church with bullet holes in it from World War II. And like it was a Greek Orthodox church, like had gone back centuries and had been through all these wars and fires and had evidence from all of it. While we were there, we got this big bottle of, have you ever heard of Ouzo?
Oh,
It's Greek moonshine and it tastes like black licorice, but it's clear.
okay.
Uh, and we immediately bought like jugs of that and got a bunch of water bottles because we weren't supposed to be seen drinking out in town.
Okay.
And poured out all the water from the water bottles and filled it up and was just taking Greek moonshine to the dome all day long and just digressively
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
digressing throughout the day. So you go out with a Liberty buddy or a group of Liberty buddies. Like it's usually at least two, but sometimes they want you to have groups of like 4 or 5. Like you're going to go out in town, you stay with these people and you got to be back at night. Don't get into trouble. Like that, a more elaborate version of that is our Liberty brief. The brief before we go on Liberty.
How many sailors are descending upon this town at each port visit?
Yeah, so a Nimitz class aircraft carrier, which was the kind that I was on, with an air wing on it, had it can be from 5 to 7,000 people.
Holy cow!
Yeah, at a Nimitz, any of our aircraft carriers are floating cities, like legit towns on there. So I think we had like a crew of 5,500 around there on this deployment. So like over 5,000 sailors descend on Crete, Greece, a little island. We go see all this cool stuff. We're slamming Greek moonshine to the head. I, at some point, don't have any memories of what was going on. That doesn't happen to me a lot, but it happened to me this time. And like I remember being on a bus, a little, a short bus going around these dangerous, very sketchy curves all over Crete, and and then I wake up and I'm by, I don't care how you say this. I don't think there's a right way to say it. A gyro stand or a gyro, the
Yeah,
sandwich.
yeah.
And I'm by myself. I wake up and I'm holding my head like this. And there's this big black puddle between my feet. I'm sitting on a curb by a gyro stand. I have food wrappers by me. And there's this big black puddle. There's a fire somewhere near me. I smell smoke. I see all people I recognize from the boat, but none of them are my Liberty buddies, like walking all around me. No one's giving me a second of attention. Like no one's showing me any concern, which is fine. I make my way back to the boat, get in trouble because I don't have my Liberty buddy. And because I was allegedly drunk on moonshine, they called it an alcohol related incident. So I got put on Liberty risk and punished for that. I wasn't allowed to get off at the next port. Anyway,
Well, I mean, but that's kind of an expectation, right? So is it just like
it was back then.
as long as you just kind of keep your shit together, like
Well, hold up.
don't ask, don't tell kind of thing?
Let me finish this key part and I'll address that. When I got back to the boat, I had discovered that members of the George Washington, some of them from my division, had started this bar fight at like the only big club that they had there. Started this fight, turned into like a real Donnybrook where like windows were getting smashed, turned into a fire. This club caught on fire. Turned into we weren't allowed back at Crete. This specific aircraft carrier wasn't allowed back in Crete, but we stayed there for another 2 days, just sitting off the coast, which sucked. Sitting off the coast because we still had supplies. Like there was a logistical reason for us to be there, and so they were still shuffling supplies. There were still small Liberty groups, but Liberty got shut down because there was a bar fight that turned into a fire, a business being destroyed. From sailors. So that is a stereotypical version of a sailor.
Okay.
Uh
Now, just to clarify in my mind. So these towns, like I assume there's some type of logistics to say, hey, we're bringing 4,000, 5,000 sailors.
mhm.
And so they can, like, they expect you to be there kind of thing.
Yeah,
They expect that you're coming.
yeah, it's a big boom for the town. Yeah, and they're ready for us. Like they know way in advance. It's usually at a Navy base. It's weird that the US has US Navy bases all over the world. It's usually at a Navy base, a US Navy base, if not a partner's Navy base, and very rarely sometimes like just maritime ports, like normal, yeah, shipping or sailing ports, but usually it's at a US base that an aircraft carrier will pull into. And they're expecting us.
Okay. So that's the sailor.
Yes. Oh, that Clayton, he's something, isn't he? Join us next week where we pick up right where we left off, talking about the personalities of different branches and shenanigans that were had in the military. This week's episode was brought to you by Steadfast Real Estate Group of Heritage First Realty in Wichita, Kansas. If you need to buy, sell, or do anything real estate related, give them a call at 316-461-2806 or visit them on the web at steadfastict.com. Again, that's Steadfast Real Estate Group of Heritage First Realty in Wichita, Kansas, if you have any real estate needs there. If you have any real estate needs in North Georgia, which includes buying, selling, investing in real estate, you should look up the Harry Norman Realty and the Hester Group, and you can call one of their top agents at area code 316-409-7907 or visit on the web at Clayton Blackwood, one word, .harrynorman, one word, .com. Again, that's claytonblackwood.harrynorman.com or call at 316-409-7907. If you have a tub that needs painted, or I guess any residential resurfacing, call my buddy Jed and his life partner Alex. I don't think he's really his life partner, but he is his partner, but they're Marines. At 316-209-4674. They're my friends. They don't mind me saying that. Again, join us next week where we pick up right where we left off, talking about personalities of different military branches, and conversation usually dissolves into religion or something like that. Anyway, see you next week. Love you. Bye.